You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanner. So, let's be friends. Today, I get to speak to Juan Pablo Montoya, and I was going to do it all by myself, but there was a bit of hustle and bustle. There was rebellion in the ranks. The peasants were revolting. So first on the list of people saying, you better let me on that show is Alex Vangeen. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Spanners. When you put that message in Discord and who said any questions for Juan Pablo Montoya, and my question was yes, can I be on the show? I expected you to say no, because I'm a big Montoya fan, because he was my guy to follow to beat Michael Schumacher.
Yes, everyone was hoping for someone to end the misery.
And I still stand by, and I will fight to the death on he's the best driver never to win a Formula One World Championship. He just wasn't in the right car at the right time with the right reliability, because that McLaren was amazing, but couldn't finish a race. And he was only in F1 for 6 years. And it's really hard to think about that, because someone of that ability deserved a much longer career than Lance frickin' Stroll.
Yeah, but it was like at the time, it wasn't his main focus almost. He came in as an outsider, and then when things didn't go his way, he had other options. He had a life outside of the Formula One circuit. So when I said yes, Alex can be on the interview with Juan Pablo Montoya, I'll just do it with me and Alex. There was another phone call, and that was from Matt Trumpets. Hello, Matt. Sorry for nearly leaving you out.
You were never going to deprive me of my tire-related questions. There's never been a career more related to tires than Juan Pablo Montoya. And the thing that gets me, because I knew him as an American doing American-y things, Colombian, the thing that really gets me, aside from the whole 03 regulation change, the thing that really gets me is if you look at what Raikkonen did into 2016, 2017, and you just ask yourself, what would Montoya have achieved if he'd stuck with that sport? And I weirdly agree with Jeansy here.
Correctly
the sky's absolutely the limit for that guy. He's the most versatile driver I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, so obviously this is the highest profile interview we've ever done. And I have to admit, very nerve-wracking for me to speak to a 7-time Formula One race winner. But for a little bit of context, this is in collaboration with NASCAR, Mobil 1, and our friends at the 2311 NASCAR team. So me, Matt, and Christina are going to go out to Watkins Glen, and we're going to get some great interviews out there. We have more F1 related content. I'm not going to spill the beans on that yet, but there is another F1 link as well. But this has been a great opportunity, and thank you so much to NASCAR, Mobil 1, and 2311 for hooking all this up. And I think without further ado, let's speak to Juan Pablo Montoya. Well, this week on Missed Apex Podcast, we have a guest that makes all our previous guests seem like trash. Yes, we do like to bring you a variety of guests from a range of F1 disciplines, from the world of F1 journalism, and the best content creators that Formula One has on the internet. But today's guest makes all of them look like garbage, especially Summer's F1. You were already broccoli, now you're demoted to cauliflower, because today we have a motorsport legend, F1 driver, NASCAR driver, IndyCar driver, arguably the most versatile top-level driver there's ever been, and a 7-time Formula One Grand Prix winner to boot. It's Juan Pablo Montoya. Welcome to the shed, Juan.
Thank you. How are you guys doing?
We're very excited to speak to you. Obviously, we're making our way down to NASCAR with 2311 for Watkins Glen, where you'll be guest appearing in the 50 car.
Yes, that's different. I'm actually really excited, to be honest. It's hard to know what to expect, to be honest. In a way, I really think I should be pretty competitive. But you never know. You can't be selfly arrogant to say I'm gonna go and kick their ass. You know what I mean? Because they run the cars every week. So I'm expected that I should be pretty competitive. I think honestly the two hard parts is the short weekend I think that's for sure a challenge. Just go out there and get 20 minutes and you pretty much got to drive what they give you. That I think that makes it pretty tough. But on the other side, they're being pretty quick. They have a really good race car. So from that side, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I was going to say there's almost a bit more pressure because their form has been so good of late, and it's a really competitive grid. And I just heard you talking on Beyond the Grid a few months ago, and these are your words, and you were saying move or I'll crash. Do you take that mentality into a guest appearance in NASCAR, or do you have to be like a good guest, take your shoes off at the door?
I mean, I think it depends on the occasion or what it is. Yeah, I mean, I understand how NASCAR works. I've done it for a long time, or I did it for a long time. So, I mean, you understand different than a lot of racing. You have a bumper. So if you close on somebody, they're going to use the bumper. And if somebody closes on you, you're going to use the bumper. You know what I mean? I don't really expect anybody to be too idiotic, because I can be very idiotic as well. So from that point of view, honestly, I'm really hoping for a quiet weekend. Be competitive, be fast, don't do anything too stupid, and see what give yourself a shot.
Oh, well, having watched the last few rounds, your wish may not come true. There's been quite a bit of chaos out on the ovals, but this is going to be a road course. And I think when you were doing NASCAR before, the non-NASCAR drivers, if you like, had a bit of an advantage on the road courses. Do you think that'll still exist?
No, I think a lot of especially the better kids the guys that are doing it, they're doing a lot of karting and a lot of shifter karts, so they're up to speed quite well. You know what I mean? They understand how the cars need to be driven, and they understand all that. So, I'm hoping we have quite a bit of tire there that I think it might play into my hands if there is. So we'll see. I have this opportunity with with the 2311 and Mobile One, and I want to make the most out of it. You know what I mean? I don't think they call me because it's cool to have my name on the car. I think they call me because they think I can do a good job. Or I hope they call me because I can do a good job. And my mentality is to do a good job. My mentality is to figure out what I need to do a good job. If I was a betting person, I would say we might struggle in qualifying a bit. On the one lap pace, because and even when I raced NASCAR back in the day, there was so little grip there. It's very little you can do as a driver to, I found 410s. But in the races, I seem to have quite a bit more pace. So honestly, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Honestly, if I was gonna run like shit, I wasn't gonna do it.
No, fair enough. But me and Vangeen have the delusion, and please don't ruin it, that sim racing is exactly the same as real racing. But when we've done the sim racing, the simulator at the 2311 facility, I couldn't believe it. It was so hard to turn, and the back end is really trying to fight you on the exits. Like anyone who says, it's just going round in circles needs to have a word with themselves.
Yeah. So I think the sim is a little harder, especially if you overdrive the car. If you learn to be under the limit of the tire in the back, then it becomes a lot easier. I think that's more of a tire model thing, but it is tough. Where do you drove Watkins, or you did an oval?
No, that was Darlington that I did, and I still couldn't control the rear end. It's possible I'm not as good a racing driver as you. I will concede that. Sorry, Matt, you were just trying to get in there.
I wanted to ask, sort of, how do you prepare as a driver? How do you prepare for a challenge like this? Have you done testing just in the sim? Have you driven the actual car? And it's a brand new car and tires and tire size to the last time you were racing in the sport. Do you find you like the upgrade, the next gen car better or worse, or are there just some differences?
I think they've done a good job. I mean, there's things that are better, things that are worse. I think the independent suspensions are better. The sequential gearbox is better. The braking is a little better. But it's a little heavier car and it's a little less power. So that's the only downside of it. It's that You know what I mean? It's not that crazy power that you had before. So, you know what I mean? I'm honestly cautiously optimistic. Watkins have done 1 billion laps around that place, especially around the long track, not the short track.
Yeah, there's no
But-
boot, is there, this time?
The S's, for example, when we race normally, the S's are not, like when I was in the prototype or in the IndyCar, the S's are not a corner. I'll give you an example. Like, I think you brake on these cars like the 450 or 500 into the chicane. Now, on the old cars, we used to brake in the 600. And in the prototype, we used to tap the brake at the 150.
So with that in mind, how does things like your nerves and stuff go in for this? Because obviously, you know, being who you are, there's obviously an expectation on you and your performance and the other drivers in the grid excited to race around Juan Pablo Montoya. How does that fit on your mentality going forward towards the race?
I don't know. The name, it's my freaking name. What do you want me to do with it? You know what I mean? It's like, at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Honestly, my approach is, you know, focusing on the things you can control. And the things that you control is make sure you execute well, you drive well. You know, I know what I need to do. I know where I need to go. I know, you know what I mean? It's like I've done the simulator and I know where I need to brake. So I just got to go out and practice and, you know, I mean, like the Ganassi used to say, do the obvious things right.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, do the baseline and see how far off you are with the baseline. I think their talks are they're going to change turn 1 on the exit. So I think that would be quite interesting if they do.
As
But
in
we'll
how much
see.
you can use, because obviously there's a big runoff there. And
Yeah,
curves and
that
stuff.
honestly, that was probably the biggest adjustment and I did a good job on the simulator of forgetting track limits. Like, I mean, it's like, okay, you're not exiting here, but you're exiting like back there.
Yeah.
So to get your mindset that you can get on the gas earlier because you're not going here, but you're going that way, that's really tough.
So the reason we've been lucky enough to catch up with you today is that we're teaming up with NASCAR and Mobile One and our friends at 2311 to bring some NASCAR action to a wider audience. And we're actually really excited. We're going to be running the Missed Apex graphic on the 23 car of Bubba Wallace and the 50 car of Juan Pablo Montoya. And this is all coming about because of your relationship with Mobile One, who have been with you for a long, long time. And it's so interesting how these partnerships can last like a lifetime in racing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I don't think even Mobile One knows that I started racing. My first sponsor in Colombia was Mobile One. You know, I mean, they were sponsor when I was in karting, and they were a sponsor of me. My first open wheel race in Colombia, I was on Mobile One car.
Yeah, and then so it's a different set of executives, I suppose, and it's just been a nice coincidence.
It's a different world. Yeah, I mean, it's a different world because it was a local thing in Colombia. And then, you know, from the international level, I was with them with McLaren.
Well, you said the magic words IndyCar, which brings us to one of our first listener questions, because you are such a driver with such a variety of experience. And Mark asks, as somebody who has experience in multiple race series, what do you think of the recent comments from Kyle Larson about Max Verstappen? This is where Kyle Larson basically said he would beat Max in anything that isn't a Formula car.
So you can beat him, but no, you can beat him, but not at what Max is good at. How does that work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Kyle's a really good driver, and he's very good in his own discipline. The same way Max is very, very good at his own discipline. But from a global standpoint of view, in America they play basketball and they're world champions when they're playing against Americans. Where in Europe or the rest of the world, you race a world championship. You know, when you win an IndyCar championship, or you win a NASCAR championship or NBA or whatever you want to call it, they're not world championships. They're championships made in America, and the level is amazing, and what they do is amazing. You know what I mean? I think IndyCar, NASCAR, I think they're great championships, and I was very proud to be part of them. But the only truly world championship event there is, it's Formula One. I like Kyle, and I think he's a great driver, and he's done amazing things. And what he says, you know, I mean, he's won all the dirt races and dirt things, but Max is on the same and more against probably, top world drivers.
Then maybe I could ask a slightly different question. Since you've raced NASCAR and you've raced Formula One, do you think someone who came up into NASCAR would have an easier time adapting to single wheel racing? Or do you think someone who came up through open wheel is what I mean, open wheel racing would have an easier time adapting to NASCAR? And specifically, I'm going to throw ovals in there because that does seem to be the real test.
Less buttons.
How do I put this? The F1 car has so much grip that to believe how far you can go without getting it wrong is very difficult, very, very difficult, where NASCAR is the other way around. The NASCAR, that you're so limited on grip that to believe the car is going to have enough grip to make the corner, it's tough. And there's not a right or a wrong. It's just two different philosophies, You can't go and say, oh, this is so much better than that, because, if you ask Kyle, he thinks he's driving the best things in the world. If you ask, Max, he would laugh at Kyle. He probably doesn't even know who Kyle is. To a point, I don't want to be disrespectful, but, I don't, I think, Kyle has done an amazing career. He's won at everything he's done. That is, hats off to him. And he might have the potential to be as good as Max. It's like saying, oh, the rugby players are better than the American football players because they don't wear a bunch of protection and they're, it's more manhood what they do in the rest of the world than America. You know what I mean? And in America, they think, oh, technology is the best to look after the health of the competitors and everything. It's two different animals. How do you compare it?
Yeah, it's like tennis and badminton, more of like a comparison. I did wonder which side of this you'd come down on. Thank you. That's such a clear answer. Our listeners will kill me if I don't do a quick fire and try and get a few more of their questions in. Sue just asks, how much pressure do the drivers actually feel from intra-team battles? Does it make a big difference when fighting championships? So this is the disappointing thing when I went to visit 2311 is that Tyler Riddick and Bubba Wallace seem really friendly together and cooperate quite a lot. And I thought, that's a bit disappointing, really.
I think nowadays everybody is really friendly. My time was very different.
Yeah, all the F1 drivers love each other, don't they? They hang out at Taylor Swift.
Everybody, nowadays with social media, everybody hangs out and does everything. But at the end of the day, when you go racing, you're gonna end up with pissed off people if you race them. And at the end of the day, you need to put your job on top of your friends. And I always tell people, if it comes the last lap of the race, are you more comfortable dumping somebody that you really like or somebody that you really hate?
Yeah, that's why I don't get close to these guys, because at some point I've just got to cut them when I find someone better. Thank you so much for your time. But before you go, I hope you don't mind if I just address one question, because I wanted to ask you about being a karting dad anyway. And we've got, who is it? We've got Rob, who's asked, having raced in Indy, NASCAR and F1 yourself, if you could pick, which series would you rather your son Sebastian Montoya focused on? So I'm so curious about what it's like to be a karting dad or to be a racing dad. I tried to get my two kids into it when they were little. They crashed into each other a few times. My daughter actually just drove my son into the wall, and they didn't have any self-preservation. So I had to kind of just put an end to it quickly. How have you found that transition?
So the way I look at it, to be honest, is the reason we're in Europe is because it's the highest and hardest level. It's way tougher than anything else. And you got to give yourself a shot about getting into F1. But if you don't, you have grown with a much better base than anybody else. You know what I mean? So from there, you can go IndyCar racing, you can do endurance racing, you can do anything. Where if you look at from the other side, if you run Indy Lights and win Indy Lights, nobody in Europe is even going to look at you. Yeah, I mean, they're probably, again, without, you tell me who's the top 3 in the championships in Indy Lights.
No, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. No, I don't. I haven't got a clue. Jamie
Exactly.
Chadwick. I know Jamie Chadwick.
But Jamie's doing a race, and I know the Brazilian kid, Caio Collet, is racing there. But how are they doing on the points? I don't know. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's like we're so disconnected from the other world. So, and it's, I mean, in a way, it's like the Kyle Larson comment that Max Boyd doesn't even know who it is. It like if I look at a list of drivers today in NASCAR, I probably don't know half of the guys. In that in a way puts a perspective where Formula One is. You ask anybody in IndyCar about Max Verstappen, he knows. Anybody in everything, you tell me top 3 in NASCAR, ask anybody in the Formula One grid or in the Formula One paddock, top 3 in the championship in NASCAR, including myself, and I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I did see a little clip in the Feeder Series YouTube channel with Sebastian, and he was asked the question, what's it like carrying the Montoya name? Is it a help or a hindrance? And very sweetly, he said, it means you get a great coach. So that was very nice.
And a pain in the ass one as well.
Do you have a pick for Sebastian? Do you think Formula One is where you'd like him to be, all things being equal?
If we got a shot at the F1, for sure. If we got a shot at going to Formula One, would be for sure going to F1. If we don't, then you would look at IndyCar, look at other things. You know what I mean? It's F1, it's about timing. F1, it's you got to be at the right time, at the right place, everything. You know what I mean? It's such a difficult thing, but at the end of the day, it's what I tell Sebas. We're going to go into, the plan is to try to do F2 next year, and if we do, then we need to perform. We need to, everything that we learned the last few years needs to come together.
Amazing. Well, best of luck with that. And Juan Pablo Montoya, best of luck at Watkins Glen in the 50 car, guesting with 2311. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, guys.
Guys, we just spoke to Juan Pablo Montoya. Holy shit, that was amazing.
How cool is that?
His answers were so good. I love. He's talking about, I hope there's high deg, because if it comes down to managing the tires, I'm really good at that. It's like an answer. It's amazing.
And thanks. That's the first time you've ever made me add bleeps to a show, Matt. That's how excited you've got. But yeah, I just thought we'd hang around and have a little bit of a chat around it, because he's very open. And with people on that level of fame, you always get the messages through from the agents and the PR people. Mr. Montoya can give you 37 seconds. Do not talk about cats, IndyCar, or Belarus. You normally get that. But once he got chatting, he was really, really generous and open. So I'm hoping we can hear more of him when we go out to Watkins Glen, hear more from him, sorry. But yeah, Alex, like you're saying about that unfulfilled potential, we come from it from an F1 point of view, where they're like, why wouldn't you want to pour your entire heart and soul specifically in the one thing we love?
Yeah.
But it's not really been like that for him, because he's like, well, I'll just go and be brilliant somewhere else. The guy's won in everything.
Yeah, he was exactly like I expected him to be, completely honest and open and blunt, and that's why I always loved him in Formula One, because you just never got any BS from him. It was always exactly what he thought, and screw you if you didn't like what he said. I'm after a rubbish day, my endorphins are high and it's great.
No, I think you can tell we're all buzzing a little bit, because when he was talking about the not being friendly with people in Formula One and stuff, and it actually drives me mad that all that new crop kind of post Lewis Hamilton, that George Russell, Verstappen, Norris generation, they're all like really good mates, and you got Leclerc and Gasly hanging out at a concert. You're like, no, I want war between these guys. And when it was Montoya, it was war between those drivers.
It definitely was. Well, this is the whole thing. It was a question I actually voice noted to Matt to put in the notes this morning, which was basically all the current grid are so chummy. What was it like with you? And obviously somebody else had asked that question as well. So I'm very pleased that I got the exact answer I expected to get from that question.
No, I think he said, I saw it on Beyond the Grid, and he said it in previous occasions, that like he just never spoke to any of them. And I did love that answer of, Who would you rather put in the ditch? Someone who you're
that
friends
answered
with.
it for sure.
And
But I think because he was teamed with Ralph Schumacher for a while, and Ralph Schumacher was the same. He just did not purposely made sure he didn't or didn't have anything to do with his teammates.
Yeah.
It's a different sport. And is it better for it? I think for the stuff on telly, it is. For things like Netflix, it is, when they're all pally and whatever.
Here's the thing.
Because then you get to see relationships die, like we're going to see between Max and Lando.
Well, this is the thing. So the Max and Lando one, we thought if you got to Austria, if that had been 20 years ago and they'd had that coming together, that would now be a season-long feud. But by the time they'd got to the next press conferences, they were like, oh no, I invited him on my jet, we had a smoke and a sausage, and that's it, they're mates again. They're fully, did I go Dr.
But
Evil?
they've done they've done a sim race together, I'm pretty certain. They've done a stream together since, so...
Yeah, it's no good. I don't like that. I prefer it the other way.
The way you'll see how it really works is if me and Brad have a crash on track in our karting, then you'll see how tested the friendship can be, considering we have to pack up and drive home together. So I've tried very hard not to smash Brad off the circuit.
It's not quite at the same level, though, is it, Alex?
How dare you? Access Karting and GX UK is the highest level of not rental karting. Definitely not rental
So
karting.
I was expecting Juan Pablo Montoya to laugh a little bit when I said that we compare sim racing to real life. I mean, he laughed a little too hard, to the point that it got mean and hurtful. But I've actually, when Brad got his new car, I hit him within like 3 laps of him getting all that new bodywork on his car and put big black streaks down the thing. And then I doubled down and I said it was his fault. It wasn't me, it was the professional racing driver. Yeah. We had so many great questions from the patrons, by the way. So we had some really interesting ones. Who asked the one about the Triple Crown? Did we have that one in there? So I was going to ask it and then make clear that it was Duncan asking this question and then hide and say, what does he think of the Triple Crown? Does he care about it enough to try and get a race-winning hypercar seat? And Thiras also asked, is he planning on driving Le Mans so he can get a Triple Crown? But he is on the record of saying, I have won the Triple Crown because I won a class. Oh, he won his class at Le Mans. So I was hoping we could have asked that and then hidden and then given him Duncan's home address.
So hang on, so why doesn't that class as the Triple Crown? Does the Triple Crown have to be
overall
in the
win?
top?
Yeah,
it has to be the overall win. Right?
Overall win is well, it's a made up thing to begin with. So
I mean, that's the biggest factor of it is that it's entirely made up.
And you saw how he did with the last made up question with Kyle Larson and Max Verstappen.
To be
so
fair,
maybe it was better we stayed away.
He answered that in the tone it was intended. And actually, that was one thing we didn't mention when we said it on the show on Sunday, was it was a little bit telling from Kyle Larson to say that, because an F1 driver would never point at a NASCAR driver. I can't imagine it the other way round and having like Norris go, yeah, Larson's good, but anything other than an oval and I'd beat him. And you kind of
I think you called it punching up, and I think you're absolutely right. It's that case of F1 is deemed the best of the best of the best, and anything else below technically is a lower formula. So you can punch up and go, well, I'd still beat them, because it's never going to happen, so you're never going to know.
Again, I'd say as a marketing executive, I'd be delighted as a NASCAR marketing executive if I did something and then all the Formula One people had to talk about it.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I think if I was a Formula One executive, I'd also be pretty delighted if something happened where all the NASCAR people had to talk about Formula One. So I think at that level, they're probably perfectly happy to have this ridiculous discussion.
I mean, the closest we get is the Race of Champions, which kind of seems to have dropped off in recent years and isn't quite the spectacle it used to be.
It had a moment, didn't it? It had a moment.
Had like 4 or 5 years where some of the top F1 drivers are doing it, and everyone was kind of pleading with Lewis to do it, but Lewis was like, what have I got to prove by doing that? And Seb Vettel won it multiple times with Michael Schumacher. So it's one of those things I'd love to see come back. But the problem is,
in it, didn't they?
They had Brad in it. I was there for that one. My issue with the Race of Champions has always been it's based on a rally stage. So the rally drivers are always going to have the advantage. The Sebastian Loebs has won it multiple times because it's their discipline. Stick them all in a high-powered race car on a track, and I think you'll see the F1 drivers come to the front.
I did think, obviously there's a lot of ego involved in it. So you go, okay, if you really want to take me on, let's all go go-karting in balanced weighted go-karts. There you go.
Well, it's interesting because I think Daniel Ricciardo was asked this question, or no, it might have been Lando was asked this question about if you put a whole bunch of F1 drivers in go-karts, who'd win? And he said Yuki Tsunoda because he weighs the least.
Yeah, but if you had balanced carts and say, okay, right, ballast up to 80 kilograms, and then you go, well, maybe the likes of Lewis Hamilton would be more willing to do that kind of race of champions rather than
Lewis is in his nearly 40. He'll break a rib.
I'm sure he's still. Oh, do you know? I was playing tennis earlier. I jumped up to reach like an overhead shot, and as I landed to one side, and I winded myself on my own rib. So that's the. And I was sat there doubled over. Everyone's asking what's wrong. And I'm like, I don't want to say. I need to think of something more manly than I winded myself off my own rib.
I was going to say, at least you didn't break your shoulder, which is an in-joke. Nope. You don't get it. Nobody. That was one of the reasons why he had to sit out those couple of McLaren races. He said,
"Oh, yes, right, okay." So
the people I work with, you say.
Allegedly.
So that was. So one of the questions there was, "Are you no longer bound by an NDA or whatever it was?" So is the accusation that it was a bit of a Kimi Räikkönen at the end of Lotus situation, where Kimi Räikkönen wasn't getting paid? Therefore, he said, "Oh, I've got a back issue. I can't race." And then Kovalainen had to come in and got absolutely whooped by Grosjean and said the worst thing I've ever heard a Formula One driver say, which is, "Oh, that was a lot harder than I expected." So, no, don't say that.
Is that what Heikki said?
That's what Kovalainen said. He was like, "Oh, yeah, it was a lot harder than..."
I've forgotten all about that.
It's a lot harder than I expected. So he was driving for, was it Caterham?
Caterham.
I remember Kimi's back issue, but I don't remember Kovy coming in.
Yeah, Kovalainen was the substitute driver, and he was just like, he just couldn't, it seemed like he couldn't get the tyres fired up or anything. And then you just went, yeah, that was way more difficult than I expected. And that's it. And you never heard from him again. You got to make up a better excuse than that.
Heikki Kovalainen, another victim of the Lewis Hamilton ruined my career club.
Yeah, so obviously we weren't going to ask questions along that line and what was your relationship like with Ron Dennis. But interestingly, if we hadn't have had those issues and he'd have stayed on, when was his last season? 2006?
2006. So he was only in from 2001 to 2006.
Yeah, but, right, it was the contract agreed for Alonso to come in before that. So was there a world where he stays and 2007 is Alonso versus Montoya at McLaren?
I mean, there's an alternate universe where it could have been that, but he was never staying on. He was disappearing. So I don't know if it was his decision to leave F1 or there was no contract for him that he wanted to take and left.
Yeah, the full F1, I'm not sure of. I get the feeling that at McLaren, that it had already been decided in that way that things get decided at Formula One teams. And I think just rereading a brief history of his career, I don't even think he finished the 2006 season. I think he left halfway through.
Well, let's just hope that when you meet him at NASCAR and you can make him like you, that he can come on and we can do a proper hour and just drill him on Formula One. That is your task when you go to NASCAR.
Well, that's because he'll go, "Oh, you're the guys who stuck to the allocated amount of time set by my agent. Oh, I'll speak to you for longer." And I really wish I could tell you who me and Matt are speaking to next week. But put it this way, it's impossible for me to exaggerate how good an interview we've got coming up. Even in the light of having just spoken to Juan Pablo Montoya, when you see it, you'll go, "Oh, right, no, that's pretty cool. Have I not even told you, Alex?" Then it's super double secret.
I've been in jury service for the last 2 weeks. I have missed 70 gazillion messages from all of the groups that I am involved in, and I haven't watched any news or anything. So I am so out of the loop. You may have told me and I haven't seen it.
No, well, the Missed Apex NASCAR content is going to have a lot of F1 content in it as well. And I was thinking, Matt, you were saying about the marketing guys, would they like having, the other sport talking about them? We need questions that we can ambush NASCAR drivers with that's kind of adjacent to Formula One. So, I mean, you can even use
We should talk to Catman and have him do a NASCAR driver quiz question set.
So one-line questions. Perhaps it could be, would you beat Max Verstappen in a truck race? Yes, I would. And then the next one, would you beat Max Verstappen in a bicycle race? We could do that.
In a lawnmower race.
Yeah. If you were in lawnmower racing, who would win, you or Max Verstappen? But yeah, lots of exciting stuff out there. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and holding my hand
Thank you for letting me come on this one.
Well, I was going to do it all by myself. So what content have we got coming up? We have got the... Oh, no. This is being released in the middle of the week. So we have coming up...
Monza will be coming up, no?
Monza will be... I've forgotten what pretend studio time it is right now. So yes, we've got Monza coming up, and we... Are you?
Yeah, I said I'm doing Monza.
Right, there's a panel to be confirmed because I've just made a scheduling error. But until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast, Friend to the Stars.